Hello, this is the Armory. We're back. I'm Archaic. This is Glitched.
Hello.
And this is the replay analysis portion of the week. We're going to jump into a game here. And like I said in part 1, this is a TVP on Belshire Beach. So, we're going to see this really cool 2-base timing that you do.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to talk about it a little bit? What sort of brought this on? You build a lot of units.
Yeah, pretty much. The only why I do this is because when I started playing against Protoss, I was getting cannon rushed a lot and four-gated a lot, so I started playing more of a macro-heavy game against Protoss, and then I was just hunting around for builds, and I think this build was an innovation build originally, I think. I've been playing with a lot of innovation builds lately. Um,
Oh man,
but
you pulled a lot of SCVs off the minerals to chase that probe.
yeah,
Were you pretty worried about that probe?
when it comes to when it comes to Silver League, yes. Like they'll find a corner and they'll just drop the pylon and then you're done.
Do you think one SCV would suffice for that circumstance?
No, because the math works out and the pylon wins.
But if you see him drop a pylon, could you pull more SCVs?
Yeah.
Because pulling that many SCVs early is going to really hamper, because if you think like 3 compared to like the 11 SCVs, that's like 25% of your economy almost.
Mhm.
So just be aware, one SCV is lots, just to make sure he doesn't drop some sort of pylon or anything like that. And we see this Reaper opening, which I was talking about.
Yep.
This is so good. Explain to me why it's so good.
It's so good because you get all the tech that he's building. You can see both gas on the mineral line. It works out really, really well.
It's, yes. So you checked the expansion. He didn't have an expansion yet. He did send the Zealot, which is kind of annoying because you built
Yeah.
that reactor. One of the things I mentioned to Zavel is that reactors early are actually, they actually slow down your production. You'll have less Marines if you build a reactor than if you just build another barracks and constant Marine production. So that's
Okay.
something to think about. A reactor is really useful if you're doing something like swapping it for a factory. But as far as early game, since you're already getting those barracks, you might as well just keep the constant Marine production, and that Zealot will be less of a pain because you'll have that Marine in that bunker when that Zealot gets there.
Yep.
And building that bunker is awesome, by the way. That
Yeah.
is like such nice, stable, safe. You know you're getting a fast expansion. You saw him building 2 gateways, so that's great. That's great.
The turret behind the bunker is absolutely necessary. That will save your ass from DTs so much because they just
Yeah.
can't get through that front door without being seen.
And are you upgrading out of your engineering bay, or did you just
Yes.
simply, you did? You are?
Yeah.
Okay, that's really good. And yeah, you got, I think, 1 turret per base, so that's really nice, stable play. You saw the expansion going up, so you have a good idea where he's spending his money.
Hmm.
And you're just going ahead and transitioning into this big 2-base timing. So you get a lot of gas, I think. Why do you think you get all those gas so early? Or maybe it's
That's
not early. Maybe
the
you like
gas
this
is
gas timing.
for the gas is kind of needed. One because of the double tech labs in the barracks for
Stim and
the
combat?
upgrades for statement combat there, and then for continuous Marauder production. So
Oh
it's
yeah, you
kind of
make a
needed.
lot of Marauders actually
Yeah.
in this timing. That's really cool because Marauders like a really just buff unit.
Yeah.
So that's
To
going to
handle
really help.
stalkers, there's nothing that can beat it. Like it's just so handy.
Okay, you're getting a bit of harassment here, so that's kind of annoying. We
Yeah.
see your money kind of skyrocketing as this happens. And if we just look at your barracks there, There's just nothing being produced, so that would be why. So just make that mental note. Um, constant production, and yeah, you're swapping over units to get those medevacs out. Another thing I saw, now these are pretty minor notes, so just put it on the shelf and remember. Um, if you're getting harassed, don't panic and stim all of your units.
Yeah.
If you want, just stim a couple, run up. The rest of the units will get there with plenty of time. Um,
Mm.
you probably did more damage to your units than he did. So just
Yeah.
keep that in your head. And you're moving out. So you basically move out once you get those 2 medevacs.
Yeah.
And just
Me-
take a look at your money, right? It's slightly out of control. If we pause the game here. So now this happens a lot. This happens a lot. Once we start getting active on the map, once we start getting busy,
Mhm.
we start neglecting the most important part of the game, right?
Yeah.
I would prefer you just to move these units across the map to like the watchtower or something. Go home, focus on the important things of spending your money. I saw that you're getting this command center, which is so good. So I expect as soon as this command center to finish, to float over to your third. The other thing you want to do is you need to confirm that your third is this is another small step, but just remember, you just as a standard thing, send a unit over to your third to make sure you can actually land that command center.
Okay.
Because if what happens is if you trade your army for his army, like we're expecting here, you go to take your third and you can't, there's going to be this huge hiccup in your build where you're lacking the 3 base economy to support such a huge infrastructure that you have. If you take a look at how many barracks and starport and factory, this is the kind of thing you want on 3 base, right? You want all of this stuff on 3 base. If you don't have that 3 base economy, then you have needless production buildings.
Okay.
So, number 1, when you start getting busy, when you start dealing with harassment, or if you want to start being aggressive, just make sure those fundamentals are the first thing on your checklist. Yes, move those units across the map, but also go back, make sure you're spending money, make sure you're adding as many barracks as you think you need. As a general rule, we talk about, 3 production buildings. So with Marines, because they're such a cheap unit, just count the reactor as 1 production building. So barracks with reactors 1. So 2 barracks with reactors, 1 with a tech lab. That should be 1 base, which is what you got pretty early. And then once your second base starts kicking in, you're obviously moving up to that starport and adding a couple more barracks. So that's really good. So on 2 base, you're looking at about 6 production buildings is something that you'll be able to have enough money to continue upgrading and expanding. As soon as you hit that 3 base, we're going to stop SCV production. Why do you think that is?
Because you only really need like 65 to 70 SCVs.
The optimal number, just write this in your head, 66. 66. Okay. So if you check your CC, you should have 16 at your main, 16 at your natural, 16 at your third, and then obviously the gas.
Yeah.
So we see you way oversaturated in your natural. So that means in optimal play, half of those SCVs at your natural are doing virtually nothing. They're doing a little bit, but virtually nothing. So something you want to look at is maybe you want to get that third earlier, or maybe you want to stop SCV production for a while. Because the SCVs that you're building is actually hampering your timing, and they're not doing anything for your income. So it's dead weight, is what I'm trying to say, basically.
Yeah.
What we see Terrans doing a lot is just rushing to those medevacs, so they get those medevacs out quite a bit earlier than you do, and then they take the third when they move out with their medevacs. So that way their third is finished about the time they want to be transferring some of those SCVs. Okay, so we're going to continue with the game. I dropped 80 bombs on your brain, so hopefully I didn't overload it at that moment, because this is a pretty crucial. Any kind of timing, just think with the timing, you want to get that command center up as soon as possible. And also think when you're planning out your strategies, think what do I want to do with all these SCVs? Because if you make too many SCVs, then you got that hiccup where your timing's later than it could be, and your third isn't going to be ready for those SCVs. So let's continue playing here. Okay, so we see your timing. Oh man, Marauders are pretty strong. Holy
They are
crikey.
badass.
Yeah, really, really good. So as we can see, this timing is pretty strong. Pretty strong against a guy. And we see your money pretty high. So that just means either you're not constantly producing or you don't have enough production buildings. And see, something about this is when an attack is going really well, I have my vision just on your vision, you don't have to be babysitting that attack. See, the nice thing is when an attack goes well, you want to do something else with your time other than just focus on these units. Because yes, you may win, but remember the goal of this build, the goal of any timing when you want to approach stable play, so he GG's, I'm just going to pause it here. When you approach stable play is, what's my next step? Always be thinking, what's my next step? And you preemptively thought of that next step, which is that command center, but the command center built and then it sat there. And your production, I'm just going to jump back in the game and watch how often you're actually producing. Because it's really important, number one, to not queue units, but number two, to just constantly have units coming out. Because if you think about it, you need less production buildings when you're constantly producing than when you're not constantly producing. If you're spending less money on production buildings, you can spend more money on things like your economy, your upgrades, which is something that you only ever got one engineering base. That's something you want to think about. For a Zavel, when we talk about our upgrade timings, I say once you get that through 3 base, always make sure you have 2 engineering base. Because you have so much gas on 3 base, especially when you're playing Marine, Marauder, Medevac, all of the M's. Getting those upgrades is going to be the next step, right? Because as soon as you hit 3 base, the next thing that happens is you hit a max. And the only way to improve units when you have a max is the upgrades. So 3 base is definitely the thing you want to be thinking. Upgrades, upgrades, upgrades. Oh, I just shoved my screen. Okay, we're back. So we're going to jump back and just focus on these production buildings. Let's just take a look. So you get those 2 blaze. I'm going to keep this SCV tab open. So remember, so you want 66 SCVs. That is the perfect number. 3 base. So on 2 base, you're going to jump down to 44, right? Does that make sense? 22 per base? Yes, that makes sense. So 44 is the optimal number for 2 base. So if you're doing a 2 base timing, I'm not saying stop SCV production at 44. But what I am saying is that if you are continuing to produce SCVs, those SCVs should be transferring to a command center quite quickly because they're not doing anything for you until they get that command center. So right at this point in the game, right at this 11 minutes, we look at your SCV count, it's 42. So you're hitting that ceiling. You're hitting that ceiling where, okay, I either need a third right now or I need to start chilling. Start chilling on my SCV production. Because it's just dead weight, right? You can be spending the money on things like barracks, engineering bays, or that command center.
Yep.
So that's pretty interesting because you got a lot of production. Well, actually, if we think about it, you actually don't have very much production when you have this 2 base. And that is why your money's so high, right? When I said production buildings, I said 3 per base. So you could have twice as many production buildings at this point in the game, right? Because you've saturated 2 bases. You got some upgrades going, so that's great. But you could have a lot more production buildings. So just think, as I'm saturating my base, I need more production buildings to fulfill the needs that my economy requires to spend the money. And you're good at spending, we just want to get better, right?
More effective.
Okay, so we're going to watch these barracks. I'm going to go a little faster than I did just so we can burn through it. Okay, so you're constantly producing your reactor delayed for a second. You're doing a really good job. You're adding those barracks, so that's perfect. That's exactly what I'm talking about. And your starport. So you're doing a really good job of getting those productions. They could have came a little earlier.
Okay.
So during this harass, just look at these barracks. Nothing, 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 nothing. Look at your money. Phew. Okay, there we go. And you queued 2 units. Okay, nothing on this reactor. There we go. Okay, you're getting more reactors. That's good. Nothing on these reactors. That might be because you didn't hotkey them. Okay, you're supply blocked.
Supply blocked.
Big,
There we go.
big junk. Okay, so we're at 55 SCVs. So that's about 10 away from maxing your SCV count. Why do you think we want 66 SCVs? Did I ask you this?
No, you didn't, but it's because the optimum number is 16 mining, then
Yes.
6 per gas for per base, which equals up to 3 bases, 66 in total. 22.
And why 3 bases? Why is that the magic number? Because technically you could get 88 SCVs and saturate 4 bases.
Yeah, you could, but when you think about army versus workers and balancing that out with a
Yes.
max of 22 or of 200,
Yes,
then
yes,
you got to
yes.
keep that in mind, right?
It's a supply issue. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That is why we as Terrans focus. And you see Zergs jump up to like 80, 90, 100 drones. That's because they spend their drones.
Yeah,
We
well,
don't spend
they
our...
can use them on buildings and stuff, right?
Exactly, yeah. On just spines and stuff of that nature. Okay, so we definitely saw something not quite, or not constant production. So that's something I want you to think about for next week, is not necessarily just simply spending your money, because you're good at that, right? We're patting you on the back for that. We're smiling about that. That's good. What we want to focus on this week is spending the money properly. Because if you just spend all of your money on barracks, you're hurting your army size. And if you just spend all your money on queuing your units, you're hurting your army size. So it's that really nice number that we want. And you have a pretty dang good number of production buildings. Problem is just not that constant production.
Gotcha.
And yeah, a little bit of, and it's actually nice though, because you're not queuing tons. You could just queue all these barracks and spend your money, but that would be useless, right? So that's good. That's good that you're not just relying on the queues to spend your money. And then we'll just finish out this game. So it looks like you're doing pretty good. Not quite. I don't think this barracks really ever got used. I wonder if that's because it's not hotkeyed.
It's not hotkeyed?
There you go.
Oh, yeah.
This barracks didn't get used. So that's not hugely significant because it's just 2 Marines every 25 seconds or something. So,
yeah.
But that's a good little thing to put on the shelf. And you actually do a pretty good job of keeping up production while you're attacking. So that's really good. So while you're attacking, do you just like jump over to your, what do you have, number 2 hotkey? Like AAA, DDD or whatever, and then
Pretty
jump
much,
back to
yeah.
units? Okay, that's good. That's good. Yeah, and then you tab through your factory star part. Oh man, there's the queue that we're looking for. 2, 4, 6, 7 medevacs queued. So yeah, definitely something you can watch. You can even get multiple star like we see or we used to see Thorzane get multiple star parts all the time, just because once you start producing Vikings against Colossus, you need a lot of you need multiple starports to also make medevacs and Vikings. So that's something you can think about. You can add that. But most importantly, we want you getting this third up so that you can make use of these SCVs you're making. Because if you're doing really good, which I think you are doing a really good job of constantly making SCVs, maybe this week you want to think about getting that third up a little earlier. I don't know what you have to do. That I'm totally leaving that up to you. But just as a way to iron out that hump of these SCVs, just think about trying and getting that third earlier. Because this build is obviously quite successful. So I'm sure if you just maybe do a little bit earlier of a timing or something of that nature, I'll completely leave it up to you. But just think about that. You want to be utilizing these SCVs you're making.
Yeah, totally.
And then also be thinking about production buildings. We want to be using them all the time, because if we buy the production building, if we're not using them all the time, it's kind of like this not optimal play, and we want to get you to that disgustingly good optimal play. So yes, 66 SCVs because of supply, right? Supply is one of the most important things about this game. And as soon as you hit a max, it's going to be really important. One of the biggest things that I struggled with when I was working through Low Masters was dealing with, I was so good at building SCVs that I would like look at games and I have like 105 SCVs and I'd be like, oh, there's no way I could beat a Protoss army that has 40 extra supply than me.
Nope.
Yeah, so think about that third. Give it some thought. And also, as a mechanics, focus on just that simple constant production. We saw it slip when you first moved out, and we saw it slip earlier when you started getting a little harassment. So just think, if I'm getting busy, jump back, check those mechanics, go ahead, be a little busy. See, that's the problem with busyness, is it messes with all the other things you have to do.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's obviously difficult, but that's why we play Starcraft, because it's so difficult. Yes! Okay, I think that's it for this replay.
Cool.
Obviously, thanks so much for the replay pack. I love so much going through them and just being like, what should I talk about? Yes, indeed. And stroking my fake or imaginary beard, sorry. I couldn't grow a beard if I left it for like a year. It would just be like long, I don't even know. It wouldn't grow at all. But anyways, thank you. Thanks. Obviously, we're really excited about you kind of crushing these nerds. I saw a lot of dominant games where you just kind of moved your army and then their army like parted and like disintegrated and it was just like gone. And I was like, okay, that's good. That's good. You're just walking over these people because you're so significantly better than them in every aspect of the game. That's what it's going to feel like. You're just going to go attack and you're going to walk over them and you're going to be like, well, that wasn't very hard. And that's because you realize how bad your opponents are. And you're far better than them. So you're going to be out of Silver League so quick. I'm so excited.
I hope so.
Oh, no. You will be. You will be. You will conquer the Silver League, and you will be moved up to Gold, Platinum. I wouldn't be surprised if you got moved up quite a bit, but maybe I'm being overzealous here. I don't know. I don't know. I'm pretty confident in your skill, and you're definitely showing that skill, so that's important. So that's why we're sort of picking you apart and picking these specific things like constant production and busyness causing you problems, because those are the things that are really going to like smooth out this transition. Because as soon as these timings stop winning you games, you're going to run into this hiccup where you didn't take your third, you don't have your upgrades going, and you're like, oh no.
Yep.
I just traded my army for his, but now my follow-up's so much weaker than it could be, right? So definitely right now is the time to be focusing on that, because when you hit a player where your army gets stopped, you're like, no worries, bro. I got a third. I got my 2 engineering bays up. I'm getting +2 weapons, +2 armor. I'm fine. I'm going to build a bunch more barracks because I already hit my max SCV count. And I'm just going to roll over you.
Sure.
Anticipate that. So remember, this is coming. This will be coming. I don't know if it's going to happen this week or next week, but you're going to run into someone that stops this and you're going to be like, Archaic said this is going to happen. I'm okay.
Yep. It's happened a couple times already.
Well, there you go. I'm a genius, right? It's almost like I know these guys or something. No, I don't. Anyways, thanks everybody for watching. Any last comments, Glitch, before we close her up?
Play hard, I guess. Always build workers.
Until you hit 66, and then be like, that's it. And then if you get harassed, be like, oh, I need to build a couple more workers.
Yep.
And once we get into advanced Terran macro mechanics, you can actually take those SCVs, you can put them in your army, and you can sack those SCVs because you got 12 orbitals. And you're like, I don't need SCVs. I just have an economy based on mules.
Yep.
And that is fun. That's what I'm doing so much right now, because when you have an army that's 160, 170 supply, that army is so strong. So strong. That is why Terran is the best race in the game. That's why, everybody. Right there. Hands down. Woo!
That's a little ridiculous.
That's why I play Terran, man. Clearly the best race in the game.
Yep.
Nothing can stop the perfect Terran player. And then if you add nukes to that, oh man! You've got you've got 180 supply army. You got nukes that are just like basically free bombs you just drop all over the map. And you're like, wait, how are you supposed to win again? Sorry. Let's talk about, how does my opponent, okay, he can't. He has to like switch to Tempest, and then you're like, well, that's fine, I'll just start nuking everywhere, and then your Tempests are useless. Anyway, sorry, I got off on a rant. This is the Armory. This has been week 2 with Glitched. Oh man, week 2, we're rolling this. I look forward to week 3. Obviously, I'm so excited to watch more games. Yes! Thanks everybody for watching. We will see you next week.